Hey guys, tonight we're heading to a place where the breeze smells like salt and guava, the ground is warm underfoot, and the loudest sound is probably your own breathing. You're walking through tangled palms and overgrown ferns, somewhere on the island of Mauritius, about 400 years ago. You're sweaty, slightly disoriented, and you have no map, just vague directions and a curiosity about a bird that doesn't fly, doesn't fear, and doesn't really do much of anything at all. You crouch near the edge of a slow-moving stream. It's quiet. Then, through the foliage, waddles a round, feathered boulder with legs. The beak is hooked, like it was borrowed from a parrot. The eyes are calm in that, I know I have no natural predators, sort of way. This, my friend, is the dodo, and you're here to follow it. Here's the thing, you probably won't survive this island if you're expecting it to be some kind of tropical resort. The bugs are relentless. The sun fries your scalp in under 30 minutes, and the plants seem suspiciously aggressive. But the dodo? It's vibing. You're sweating through your linen shirt, and it's just casually pecking at a piece of overripe fruit like it has all the time in the world. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far this sleepy little channel reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start walking, slowly, behind the dodo. It's not in a hurry, and neither are you. The ground is springy underfoot, full of tangled roots and fallen leaves. The air has a damp, earthy sweetness to it. You can smell the sea, always nearby. And the only thing reminding you of the real world is the occasional itch of a mosquito bite. The dodo leads you past trees that look like they're holding grudges. They twist upward in dense curls, their bark stained with streaks of lichen. There's the ebony tree, dark, smooth, almost black, and the tambalacoke, also called the dodo tree, which is a whole story we'll get to later. Right now, it's just scenery. You notice something odd. There's no alarm in the dodo's gate. No head jerk scanning for threats. It's the kind of confidence that only comes from never needing to look over your shoulder. This is Mauritius before European sailors showed up, before rats, goats, pigs, and musket-wielding naturalists started rearranging the island like it was theirs to label and control. Before that, it was just the dodo and the other weirdos that evolution had cooked up on this isolated speck in the Indian Ocean. Let's be clear, you're not going to find dodos in flocks. They weren't exactly team players. You might catch sight of a few scattered through the undergrowth, one sleeping under a tree, another awkwardly trying to climb over a fallen log like a feathered beanbag. But they're solitary, or at least low on social drama. This isn't a penguin colony. No tuxedos, no coordinated parenting shifts. Just sleepy wanderers doing their slow, heavy-footed thing. As you follow your chosen bird, you start to notice the terrain shifting. The forest thins. The wind picks up. There's sand underfoot now, gritty and warm, and the ocean comes into view in fragments through the trees. The dodo stops at a clearing. Not a dramatic stop, more like an this is good enough kind of pause. It plops its chunky body down like someone deflating a beanbag and begins to preen, very half-heartedly. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Mauritius was uninhabited by humans before the Dutch showed up in 1598. That means everything here, every weird lizard, every flightless bird, every palm tree with an attitude, evolved without humans interfering. It's a rare ecological blank slate, the kind that makes modern biologists weep a little. And your fringe tidbit? Some early accounts describe the dodo as tasting not unlike an old boot soaked in fish oil. But others insisted it was good when stewed, so either the cooking technique mattered, or sailors had low standards. Honestly, probably both. Back in your sun-drenched moment, the dodo has now rolled lazily onto its side. You can see the thick, scaly legs and stubby wings that seem barely functional, evolution's shrug. Those wings might flap occasionally, like a reflex, but they're not lifting anything. Not even hope. The bones are too light, the muscles too small. This bird gave up on flying generations ago, and you can almost respect the commitment. Now let's address the big myth. People love to imagine the dodo as this sad, slow creature that just gave up. But what really happened is more nuanced. On an island without big predators, flying stopped being useful. If you can walk to your food and nap wherever you want, why waste calories developing chest muscles and hollow bones? It's not lazy, it's efficient. Until, of course, everything changes. Historians still argue whether the dodo was truly stupid or just disinterested. It didn't freak out when sailors arrived. It didn't run or hide. But that doesn't mean it didn't notice. It just might not have had a panic response wired into its brain. Imagine living for thousands of years in a world where running away was never necessary, and suddenly you're being chased by something that smells like salt beef and colonial ambition. Let's go back to the present tense. You sit down on the warm sand, a few feet from your dodo, who's now dozing in the late afternoon heat. A fly buzzes near its eye, and it twitches once. That's the extent of its reaction. There's a kind of peace here, sunlight through the branches, the occasional splash from the shoreline, and a bird that doesn't know it's destined to become a symbol for extinction. That's the funny part. The dodo wasn't trying to make history. It didn't even know there was a history. It just existed, perfectly adapted to its environment, unaware that environments aren't permanent. You lie back. The sand molds to your spine. The fan of palm fronds above you sways slightly. The dodo breathes softly, chest rising and falling like a slow tide. And for this one moment, there is no urgency. Just the island, the breeze, and a bird that had absolutely no reason to change. You wake up to the sound of something snorting softly next to you. For a moment, you think it might be a pig. Then you remember where you are. It's still the island, still Mauritius. And your companion? Still a dodo, now standing, feathers puffed in every direction like it slept badly and doesn't care who knows it. The sun's higher now. The light cuts through the canopy in harsh streaks. You squint as your dodo companion waddles forward, indifferent to your attempts at bonding. You shuffle behind it. Your foot sinks into damp ground. Somewhere nearby, a gecko chirps once, then goes back to being invisible. Everything moves slowly. The air feels heavy with green things. Let's talk about why the dodo lived this way, unbothered, uneventful, unhurried. No predators. That's the key. Imagine being born into a world where you are never hunted, chased, or even looked at sideways with hostile intent. No ambushes, no aerial attacks, no venomous sneak-ups in the tall grass. You hatch, you walk, you eat, you sleep. That's the loop. Rinse, repeat. You're starting to see how this creates a certain attitude. The dodo is not panicking because the dodo has never had to. No evolutionary pressure to be fast, clever, or even particularly observant. You don't get natural selection when nothing's selecting you. This lack of urgency shaped everything. Their size? Huge for a pigeon, because why stay small when there's no one to grab you? Their wings? Useless. Why fly when walking works fine and you don't need a dramatic getaway plan? Even their social skills atrophied. Why negotiate when your biggest daily challenge is deciding which sunbeam to nap in? Here's your mainstream historical fact. Most of the flightless birds we know today, ostriches, emus, kiwis, evolved on islands or isolated continents with few or no predators. It's not a fluke. It's a repeatable pattern. Nature removes the threats, and birds drop their flight gear like someone kicking off shoes after a long day. Now for your oddball fringe detail. Some accounts claimed dodos would walk right into human camps and just stand there. Like, oh cool, you guys have fire. What's that metal thing? Should I be worried? Nah. Picture a dodo sauntering past a sailor cooking fish, giving him the same blank glance you'd give a vending machine that just ate your coin. There's even a question, still unresolved, whether the dodo was truly this passive, or whether those early sailors exaggerated the calmness to justify how easy they were to kill. Historians still argue whether the dodo was curious, stupid, or just evolutionarily oblivious. You step over a patch of trampled ground and find something strange. A trail. Not one made by dodos, too subtle for that, but by the other creatures on this island. Giant tortoises. You'll meet them soon. For now, though, it's worth noting, the dodo isn't even the slowest thing here. That title probably goes to the lumbering reptiles that look like armored ottomans, sliding through the underbrush like living furniture. Your dodo walks right through the path. Doesn't pause, doesn't sniff. It's clearly not afraid of anything, least of all something that moves at the pace of melting ice cream. And here's where it gets weird. This absence of threat didn't just make the dodo lazy. It rewired its entire survival strategy. If you're never hunted, you don't evolve to hide. If you never need to chase, you don't evolve to think fast. You start to lean into slowness. You specialize in low effort. You make peace with the bare minimum and settle in for the long haul. Think about how humans respond to safety. We start to relax, sure, but also to overcomplicate things. We build comfort, and then we invent anxieties just to stay busy. The dodo? Didn't bother. It didn't even try to maximize anything. No ambition. No FOMO. Just a big bird in a small world, perfectly happy to be neither impressive nor impressive looking. You reach a small clearing where the trees part like old curtains. Your dodo stops again. It stands in a puddle, lazily splashing its foot. The movement is more out of habit than purpose, like someone clicking a pen with no intention of writing anything. Here's a fun bit. The dodo's closest living relatives are pigeons. Specifically, the Nicobar pigeon, which is flashier, smaller, and still capable of flight. It's like the successful cousin with a good job and a gym routine. The dodo is the one who lives off-grid, grows weird vegetables, and hasn't updated their wardrobe since 1542. But back to your moment. You're standing there, and the stillness starts to feel contagious. You stop tapping your foot. You stop scanning the trees. You just exist like the dodo. And suddenly, the whole philosophy starts to make sense. Why rush when nothing is chasing you? Why plan when today will be exactly like yesterday? That's what this place was for them. A world where nothing really changed. Sure, the seasons shifted. It rained, then it didn't. Fruit fell, then it grew back. But the structure of life was static. It was a loop. Predictable. Gentle. You bend down and touch the water in the puddle. Stagnant. No current. No pressure. The dodo drinks a little, then pecks at the mud like it might find something better. Probably won't. Doesn't seem disappointed. Here's where the scholarly debate circles back. Was this bird an evolutionary mistake? Or was it just too well adapted to a world that changed faster than it could keep up? That's the real tragedy, maybe not stupidity or weakness, but a kind of evolutionary trust fall that ended in broken branches. The dodo leaned into its ecosystem, and the ecosystem yanked the rug out. You watch as it walks away again, the feet heavy but deliberate. It's not lost. It just doesn't care where it's going. You follow. Branches crack. You swipe at a bug. Something overhead flutters. Not a dodo, too graceful. Maybe a parakeet. The Mauritian echo parakeet still flits through these trees today, barely hanging on. It's one of the few island birds that didn't get completely wiped out by colonial curiosity and invasive chaos. You stop in a patch of light, watching your dodo dig at the base of a tree. It finds nothing. It doesn't react. Just moves on. And there's something poetic in that. You lie down again, this time on a bed of leaves. Your body sinks into the damp softness. The dodo stands nearby, casting a short, squat shadow across your legs. It makes a soft grunt. Not quite a call. More like an exhale. Then it plops down again. A mutual understanding forms. You're both going to sit here until you feel like moving. Which might be never. The sky drifts from white to gold. The forest hums. And you think, maybe this is what peace used to look like. Not silence, not stillness, but the total absence of fear. Just a bird, a patch of dirt, and a world where everything important already happened yesterday. Your dodo stirs. It lets out a sort of hiccuping grunt, shakes its stubby tail, and rises to its feet like a reluctant grandparent. It's time to move again, apparently. You stretch, your spine pops audibly, and trudge behind it into thicker foliage. The light dims. The trees here grow taller, their branches braided above you like overgrown scaffolding. The smell shifts too, less salty, more earthy. You're in nesting territory now. If that sounds dramatic, don't get excited. The dodo's approach to nesting is, what's the word? Minimalist. You step over a thin scattering of twigs and dried leaves. That might be a nest. Or it might just be where one flopped down and didn't bother getting back up. Either way, you've entered the domestic zone. Let's start with the obvious, ground nests. No high perches. No artful weaving. No elaborate choreography with feathers and spit and plant fibers. Just a shallow scrape in the dirt, maybe lined with a few leaves, maybe not. If the dodo put more than 45 seconds into construction, it was a busy day. And here's the thing, it worked. At least, it did while the island stayed predator-free. Ground nesting seems like a terrible idea to us, because we live in a world full of raccoons, snakes, foxes, and feral house cats who think eggs are crunchy jelly beans. But Mauritius? Mauritius was a chill zone. Before humans showed up, the only potential egg snatchers were giant lizards, and even they were mostly too lazy to bother. Mainstream historical fact. Many island birds that nest on the ground evolved that way due to the absence of predators. It's not just the dodo, penguins do it, kiwis too. If no one's going to eat your babies, you might as well save energy and skip the home improvement phase. You spot one now. A real nest, or at least the closest approximation. It's not much, flattened leaves and a dent in the dirt. And in the middle, the reason for all this effort, or lack thereof, one single, chalky white egg. Roughly the size of a softball. Just sitting there. No camouflage. No warning signs. No protective dome. You could trip over it by accident, and based on the dodo's attitude, you'd get a disapproving grunt and not much else. The parent, probably the one you've been following, is nearby, watching but not hovering. Dodos didn't do the whole guard and dive bomb thing like seagulls. They relied on obscurity, not aggression. Hide in plain sight. Hope for the best. You crouch next to the egg. Swarm. The shell is slightly pitted, not glossy. You reach out, your dodo gives a low noise. Not quite a warning, more like a bored, don't. You withdraw your hand. Now for your quirky detail. Some naturalists believed dodos nested communally in loose clusters, kind of like sleepy suburbs. One nest every few meters, scattered under shady trees. No tight formations, no synchronized schedules. Just a bunch of birds doing the same thing separately. Of course, historians still argue whether the dodo actually shared space or if they were more territorial than we thought. Some early drawings show multiple dodos loitering around a single tree. Others suggest they kept a polite distance, like neighbors who wave but never talk. You move on, carefully. Nesting season, while relaxed, still commands a kind of respect. You step over another dent in the dirt and spot a different dodo pecking absently at a fallen mango. This one looks smaller, maybe younger, maybe female, or maybe there's no real size difference and you're just projecting. That's another thing. No one's totally sure what dodo gender dynamics looked like. There's fossil evidence suggesting females might have been smaller, but soft tissue doesn't fossilize, and no one ever wrote down, "I watched a dodo couple raise a baby." So we guess a lot. The dodo ignores your presence. You're just another background character in its very slow, very repetitive day. You sit down again, because why not, and try to imagine what life was like when this was the peak of productivity. Lay one egg. Sit near it. Eat fruit. Repeat. And here's where we talk about energy. The dodo's entire existence was an energy conservation masterclass. One egg per breeding season, likely. Maybe two in a good year. That's not a lot, but it was enough. If your offspring have a high chance of survival, again, no predators, you don't need to mass produce them. Contrast that with birds on the mainland, laying a dozen eggs and losing half to snakes before they even hatch. Here, one was enough. You start to understand the psychology of it, the way everything revolved around not doing too much. Lay low. Don't waste energy. The island gives you what you need. Just don't screw it up. Unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. But we're not there yet. Right now, you watch as the dodo settles into its nest, which is barely distinguishable from the ground around it. It shifts, lets out a satisfied huff, and tucks its beak under its wing. The egg, warm and unbothered, does absolutely nothing. You almost envy it. Suddenly, there's a rustling behind you. You turn. Another dodo. This one looks annoyed? Hard to tell. It approaches, slow and deliberate, and nudges your foot. You shift. It nudges again. It plops down in the exact spot you were just occupying and immediately starts grooming itself like it owns the lease. You are now the third most important creature in this clearing. Maybe fourth if we count the egg. That's another unspoken rule. Dodos didn't seem to care much for personal space, unless it involved food. And even then, disputes were more like passive-aggressive nudges than full-on fights. No beak jousting. No dramatic flapping. Just a quiet shuffling of bodies until everyone had a little room to breathe. The light shifts again. Afternoon now. The shadows grow longer. You're still sitting. No one's moving fast. That's kind of the point. Let's do one final reality check before we end today's stretch. There was nothing inherently doomed about the dodo's nesting strategy. It worked. It had worked for centuries. The problem wasn't the bird. The problem was the world changing faster than it could adapt. So for now, you lie back on the mossy ground. A dodo sleeps to your right. Another pecks at your shoe and then loses interest. The egg remains silent. The forest breathes. And you think, maybe this wasn't laziness. Maybe this was mastery. Doing the absolute minimum and thriving for generations. Until everything went sideways. But that's another chapter. You wake to a strange sound, squish crunch squish. It's rhythmic. What? Organic. You open one eye and see your dodo, beak deep in what used to be a mango. It's not so much eating as it is mashing the fruit into pulp and then casually inhaling it. The juice drips from its beak in slow, sticky lines. It looks deeply satisfied. Welcome to the dodo's food philosophy. Whatever falls on the ground, probably edible. That's the grocery list. You sit up, stretch, and look around. The forest floor is strewn with the casualties of gravity, squashed guavas, half-eaten berries, the occasional seed pod that looks like it might have teeth. The air is warm and heavy with the smell of fermentation. If you've ever left a fruit bowl too long in summer, you know the scent. It's sweet, it's sour, it's aggressively alive. Here's what dodos ate, best as we can guess. Fallen fruit, seeds, tubers, and probably a few unlucky insects or snails that got in the way. They weren't hunters. They were janitors with beaks, cleaning up the botanical mess the trees kept dropping. Efficient, low effort, no prep time. Mainstream fact, the dodo likely had a strong, curved beak not just for show but for cracking open tough seed pods, including those from the tambalacoke tree, aka dodo tree. There's a whole legend about how that tree couldn't germinate without passing through a dodo's digestive tract. That's been debunked, sort of, but the connection remains sticky in popular science. Fringe detail? Some naturalists theorize dodos may have been mildly omnivorous, occasionally munching on crabs or shellfish near the shoreline. No hard evidence, but the beak could have handled it. So yes, your chill island bird might have also been a low-key beach scavenger. Not glamorous. Very real. Back in the moment, your dodo finishes the mango and walks away like it didn't just make a scene. You follow. It waddles with a kind of full-bellied pride, trailing juice and bits of fruit pulp. Around you, the forest hums, a chorus of bugs, wind, and the occasional rustle of leaves falling on their own schedule. The foraging process isn't exactly high stakes. There's no sprinting from tree to tree. No battles over territory. Just a slow wander and a constant sniff test. Is that edible? Move on. Mash and swallow. Repeat. You watch as your dodo approaches a cluster of low bushes. It shuffles its feet in the undergrowth, dislodges something round and brown, and then pecks at it with clear skepticism. After a few minutes of ineffective stabbing, it gives up. That's the full arc of the hunt. And that's what stands out, the lack of urgency. There's no hoarding, no stash, no winter prep. Everything is eat as you go. The forest provides. Always has. Until it didn't, but we'll get there. You kneel by one of the fruit piles and inspect it for yourself. A mix of guava, palm fruit, and something that might be breadfruit. You try a piece. It's mushy, a little sour, not bad. Your dodo watches you with vague interest, then nudges you out of the way to grab the fruit you were just holding. Food etiquette here is simple. If you found it, great. If someone else found it and you want it more, go take it. Conflict? Rare. You get the sense that even when two dodos want the same fruit, They're more likely to stare at each other until one gets bored and leaves. Some scholars argue this is a form of passive competition. Whoever can outweight the other wins. Historians still argue whether that behavior was a sign of intelligence or just low metabolic urgency. It's hard to measure brain power in birds that barely moved fast enough to get hungry. You and your dodo walk again, a lazy loop through the feeding grounds. You notice how certain trees seem more popular than others, probably fruiting more frequently or just closer to the water. Dodos weren't dumb, they just didn't make a big show of their preferences. You also start noticing patterns, areas where beak marks scar the soft bark, spots on the ground that look like regular rest stops, trampled, oddly shaped, and faintly dodo-scented. These are the closest things to dodo infrastructure. No nests, no burrows, no tools, just the subtle wear of repeated habits. Let's talk digestion. It's believed that dodos swallowed stones, gastroliths, to help grind up tough seeds in their gizzards, kind of like portable blenders. You glance at your dodo now and wonder, what rocks are in there, spinning away? Is that mango getting a gravel smoothie treatment as we speak? And here's a fun question, how often did they eat? We don't really know. Maybe several small meals a day. Maybe one big fruit binge and a long nap. Their bodies were big, but their lives were simple. They didn't need a feeding schedule. They just needed a forest that didn't run out of snacks. You reach a clearing with several dodos milling around, 4, maybe 5. One is half asleep against a log. Another is digging around a rotting jackfruit. No one's talking. No one's competing. It's less like a party, more like a very relaxed farmer's market where everyone's too shy to make eye contact. You sit and watch. They peck, grunt, occasionally sneeze. That's a real sound they made, probably, a kind of nasal snort recorded in some early traveler logs. Not a musical bird. Not a screamer. More like someone clearing their throat every few minutes. One dodo approaches another and reaches for a piece of fruit. The second one responds by stepping sideways, not quickly, just a casual nah. The first one pecks at the ground instead, pretending it wasn't interested in the fruit anyway. Conflict resolution, dodo style. The sun tilts lower. The shadows grow long again. Your stomach rumbles. You've eaten about a third of a fruit and nothing else since you arrived. The dodo has eaten 8. You wonder, did they ever overeat? Is it possible to binge on mangoes and regret it later? Maybe. But given how slowly they moved, their bodies probably burned energy like a candle with no wind. No stress, no drama, no metabolism boost. Just a steady trickle of effort over a very long time. And that's the essence of dodo logistics. Find food, eat it, don't die. Repeat. There's something comforting in that. You're used to the noise, alarm clocks, deadlines, calorie counts, multivitamins. The dodo? The dodo just eats what falls in front of it. If that isn't a life philosophy, what is? The breeze picks up. A palm frond drops nearby with a papery crack. Your dodo flinches slightly, then goes back to pecking at a bruised guava. You lean back on your elbows and let your eyes drift closed. Tomorrow, you'll probably eat more. The dodo definitely will. But for now, everything it needs is already on the ground. You're jolted awake by a thunk. A solid, meaty thunk, like someone dropped a cantaloupe onto wet soil. You blink and turn your head just in time to see your dodo flapping its wings in a flurry of effort, half hop, half collapse, right onto the same nest you visited earlier. The egg is gone. Now in its place, a barely dried chick, wobbly-legged, fuzz-covered, and about as mobile as a warm sock full of pudding. It blinks once, then proceeds to do nothing. Perfectly on brand. Welcome to the dodo's approach to parenting. Keep it simple, keep it slow, and definitely keep it low to the ground. The adult dodo doesn't coo, doesn't fetch worms, doesn't fuss. It just stands there for a long time, staring at the chick like it's trying to decide whether parenting started yet, or if this is still part of the incubation phase. Eventually, it bends down and nudges the chick with its beak. The chick squeaks, barely audible, and topples sideways. That seems to be enough interaction for now. Let's break this down. The dodo's reproductive strategy was low volume, high investment. As in, 1 egg per breeding season, maybe 2 if the bird was feeling extra productive. That's it. No massive clutches. No, let's make 10 and hope to survive. One baby. All in. Mainstream historical fact. Many island birds follow this model. The Seychelles magpie robin, the Hawaiian crow, even the kiwi. When there are no predators and food is fairly reliable, slow reproduction works. It's not about numbers, it's about balance. But that strategy also comes with risk. If something starts preying on those rare eggs or chicks, the whole population can collapse in a generation or two. The math stops working. But here, in this little patch of pre-human Mauritius, the math still works. You watch the chick breathe. It flutters once like it might stand. Then it thinks better of it and settles back into the nest dent. Sensible. Fringe tidbit. Some scientists speculate that dodo chicks grew fast. Like very fast. Maybe reaching adult size within months. Probably because they needed to be self-sufficient quickly. No long adolescence, no years of awkward teen bird phases. You go from ugh to nearly full-sized boulder in record time, and then you do what every dodo does. Wander around eating fruit and generally not worrying about anything. Historians still argue whether dodos showed any real parental care after hatching. Some say yes. There are hints of post-hatch guarding, maybe feeding. Others argue the chick was basically on its own within days. The truth? Somewhere in the mushy middle. Nature rarely sticks to neat answers. You watch now as the adult sits beside the chick. Not on it, not hovering, just beside it. Like emotional support by proximity. Every now and then it leans over and nudges a piece of fruit closer. No beak feeding, no regurgitation, no fanfare. Here's your food. Do your best. You shift on the ground and look at the chick. It blinks again. Still hasn't moved. And that's part of the pattern. Everything about dodo parenting was low intervention. No helicoptering. No overthinking. The chick had to figure things out, and fast, because the parent wasn't going to carry it around or build it a playpen. That might sound cold, but in a predator-free environment, it was sustainable. You don't need hover parents when your worst-case scenario is falling off a log. Eventually, the chick stands, barely. It takes one tiny step, then flops. Not bad for hour-old legs. The adult watches, unmoved. You can almost hear the internal monologue, close enough. You spot a second dodo in the distance. It has no chick, no egg, just a fruit-stained beak and a blank expression. It wanders over, pokes around the same bush your dodo was foraging near earlier, and sits down like it's earned a break. Parenting envy? Probably not. More like ambient curiosity. That's one of the stranger things about watching them. They don't interact much. Dodos weren't especially social. No coordinated nests. No family groups. They were solitary most of the time, maybe coming together loosely during breeding season, but even that was probably more, hey, you again, then let's raise a baby together. You shift again, feeling the ground press cool against your spine. The forest above you hums, leaves twitching in the breeze, birds you can't see calling in the distance. The dodo chick takes another step. Better this time. Oh, sure, but more controlled. Then it pecks at a leaf, chews it, and immediately spits it out. Wrong leaf. Lesson learned. The adult watches without comment. You start to notice a rhythm to all this. Hatch, nudge, observe, and let the chick figure the rest out. No lectures. No guidance counselors. Just proximity and the hope that genetics did enough of the heavy lifting. Imagine being born into a world so safe, so quiet, that this kind of detached parenting worked. Where learning by doing didn't come with an existential cost. It's enviable in a way. Harsh but fair. You're hungry again, and so is the chick, apparently. It pecks at a bruised piece of fruit half covered in dirt. The adult dodo nudges it closer, then walks away. Slowly, deliberately, like saying, all right, you've got this now. And that's the handoff. No graduation speech. No sentimental goodbye. Just one final look, then back into the trees. The adult moves on. The chick stays behind. Watching. Learning. Surviving. It's hard to tell how you feel about this. Part of you wants to scoop the chick up and help it. The other part, the quieter, more honest part, understands that it's not your job. The system worked until we broke it. For now, the system still exists. You get to see it in motion. You watch as the chick stumbles toward a patch of shade, curls into itself like a tiny bread roll, and goes to sleep. The adult dodo is gone, vanished back into the trees. You lie still. The chick breathes. And the forest, once again, does what it's always done. You're still lying there. It's midday now, the sun so high overhead that even the shadows look tired. The heat presses down on everything like a thick, warm towel draped over the island. Your shirt is damp, your limbs are heavy, and your brain has taken on the consistency of mashed breadfruit. And somehow, your dodo is fast asleep. It's flat on its belly, legs sprawled out like it collapsed halfway through standing. One wing is twitching gently, dreaming, maybe, though that's probably assigning too much narrative to what is essentially a living boulder. Its beak rests in the dirt. Its eyes are closed. A single fly buzzes around its head, unbothered. Welcome to the dodo's afternoon, the sacred art of doing absolutely nothing, aggressively and without apology. Let's talk schedule. The dodo's day wasn't divided into neat productivity blocks. There were no shifts, no migration, no social obligations. Just movement when necessary, food when available, and rest in between, mostly the resting. You've seen animals nap before, sure. But this isn't a quick recharge. This is a commitment. The dodo doesn't nap like it's killing time. It naps like napping is the job. And here's the kicker, it makes sense. In a place like this, under this sun, why burn energy when you don't have to? You and your dodo are surviving just fine by doing the bare minimum. Drink, sit. There's no prize for overexerting yourself. Mainstream historical fact. Many animals in tropical island environments develop low metabolic rates over generations. Think of it as nature switching into power saver mode. Less food needed, less movement required. You don't need to stay warm. You don't need to run. Just stay alive, and the ecosystem handles the rest. Quirky tidbit? Some early accounts claimed dodos were so sluggish during the heat of the day, sailors could literally walk up and pick them up without resistance. Whether that's exaggerated or not, it paints a picture. This was not an animal concerned with self-defense. It was concerned with comfort. You, right now, are slowly becoming one of them. You lie back. The palm fronds above flicker in and out of your vision, the breeze whispering through them like someone muttering secrets just out of earshot. You hear the occasional creak from a nearby tree, the distant call of a fruit bat, the soft rustle of your own breath. You don't feel the need to get up. Why would you? Historians still argue whether dodos were primarily diurnal or if they adapted to avoid the hottest part of the day with long midday rest. But watching one now, this absolute commitment to inertia, you'd put money on the latter. This is the dodo's version of a siesta, and you are in it. You roll to one side, slowly, carefully. Your dodo snorts softly but doesn't wake. Its breathing is rhythmic, 4-second inhale, 4-second exhale. You sync your own breath to it without trying. You start to feel the rhythm of the island settle into your bones. Even the insects seem slower now. A beetle crawls across your boot with no urgency. A pair of lizards wrestle for about 6 seconds, then both give up and walk in opposite directions. It's not laziness, it's just a world without pressure. You sit up, reluctantly, and take a small walk through the clearing. Every few feet, you spot signs of more dodo downtime. Feathers, impressions in the soft dirt, half-eaten fruit beside a log. Like scattered memories of naps taken days or hours ago. It's a network of rest stations. You find one particularly large dodo snoring lightly under a tree, beak slightly open, a tiny puddle of drool forming beneath it. It doesn't even twitch as you approach. You could probably poke it, but you don't. You respect the vibe. Now here's something unexpected. You start to feel what this lifestyle does to your brain. You're slower, but not in a foggy way. Just more deliberate, more selective. You don't want to multitask. You don't want to plan. You just want to exist. Lie down, do it again later. That's enough. This is what it means to truly belong in an ecosystem with no predators, no scarcity, and no stress. It's not paradise in the postcard sense. There are bugs. It's hot. Everything's a little damp. But mentally, emotionally, this is a masterclass in being unbothered. You return to your dodo. It hasn't moved. The fly is gone, replaced by a curious gecko watching from a nearby branch. The forest hums again. Somewhere, very faintly, a wave crashes against the far edge of the island. You feel like you've been here for years. Let's talk about what happens during this sleep, because it's not just laziness. The dodo, like many island birds, likely used rest to regulate its energy intake. With limited high-energy food and a low metabolic need, sleep became a resource strategy. We tend to think of survival as action. Flee, hunt, gather, build. But for animals like the dodo, survival was also not acting. It was stillness. It was rest. The forest gave what was needed. You just had to accept it. And the dodo excelled at acceptance. You lie back down. Not because you're tired, but because standing feels unnecessary. Your eyes close. You listen. Breathing. Leaves shifting. A sleepy grunt from a dodo. That's the soundtrack of this species. Not calls, not mating dances, not alarms. Just the quiet sounds of existence. And here's the last thing you notice before you drift again. Even the trees seem to nap. Their branches hang heavy. Their roots curl deep into the ground like they've settled in for the long haul. This whole island is on the same tempo. It's not just the bird that moved slowly. Everything did. The air. The time. Even you. You wake up to a noise that doesn't belong. It's not the rustle of leaves or the lazy snap of a twig. It's sharper. Rhythmic. A hard tapping, like stone on stone, or claw on bark. Your dodo jolts upright, startled. Its eyes dart toward the sound, and its feet shuffle in slow, cautious circles. You've never seen it move this quickly, which is to say, slightly faster than a glacier. You both freeze. And then, from the trees, something appears. Long dark. Not a predator, not exactly, but not like anything else you've seen on this island. It watches. It doesn't attack. Just perches. Then vanishes. What you just saw was a monkey. Not native. Not supposed to be here. But here nonetheless. This is where things start to shift. The rhythm you've been living in? The slow cycle of fruit and naps and gentle chick nudging? It's not built to handle intrusions. And that's exactly what this is. The very first edge of human disturbance, arriving long before humans themselves. Let's back up. Mainstream historical fact. Rats, monkeys, and pigs were introduced to Mauritius by early sailors, accidentally or intentionally. They didn't come with malice. But they didn't need malice. Just hunger and speed. Rats ate eggs. Pigs rooted through underbrush, destroying nests. Monkeys snatched fruit, and sometimes chicks. The dodo? It had no concept of defense. It didn't hiss. Didn't flee. It just blinked and died. And it all began like this, with a single monkey staring through the branches. Your dodo is unsettled now. It paces a little. Its chick peeps. The sense of calm that soaked this island for thousands of years is still here, technically, but thinner now. You feel it like a pressure drop. Something's changed and the animals know. Fringe tidbit. There's a theory, fringe, but fascinating, that dodos, in their final decades, began nesting higher up. Not in trees, they couldn't fly, but on small ridges under rock outcrops, anywhere slightly elevated. A desperate instinctual shift. No one can prove it, but a few oddly placed eggshell fragments found in hillier terrain have sparked debate. Was it adaptation, or just randomness? Historians still argue whether humans hunted dodos into extinction directly, or whether we simply opened the ecological door for everything else to do it for us. Either way, the end came fast. Maybe within 50 to 60 years of first contact. That's barely 2 dodo generations. You walk with your dodo now, deeper into the forest. It doesn't know where to go. There's no safe spot. Every shadow feels heavier. Every fruit feels less abundant. It's not that the island is ruined, it's that the pattern is broken. And dodos don't do well with broken patterns. You pass an old nesting area. Feathers everywhere. One cracked egg, still sticky, half filled with ants. Your dodo stops. It smells the air. It doesn't cry or react dramatically. It just turns and keeps moving, as if the only thing it can do is wander. You want to help. But how? You can't warn it. You can't teach it to fight or to flee or to hide. These are muscles it doesn't have. The dodo's body, so perfectly tuned to island laziness, is a liability now. It was designed to relax, not to escape. And this is what makes extinction so insidious. It doesn't show up as a single moment. It's not an explosion or a scream. It's the slow build of imbalance. One predator, one rat, one stolen egg, then another, then another. You sit by a stream now, the same one from before. But this time, the water feels colder. The birds are quieter. Even the trees seem tenser. Your dodo drinks, but it glances up every few seconds, eyes darting. It's starting to understand. Not cognitively, not in the way humans understand danger, but biologically. The world feels different. And that's enough to stir fear, even in a bird that never needed fear before. You wonder how many dodos felt this. How many watched their chicks disappear? How many wandered deeper into the forest and never came back? The records don't say. The bones don't tell stories. But the island remembers. There's one moment you won't forget. A mother dodo, different from yours, chasing off a rat. She doesn't kill it. She doesn't even catch it. Just stomps and flaps until it scurries away. And then she stands there, trembling, looking at her egg like it might vanish at any second. And it might. That's what makes this part of the story hard. You're still surrounded by beauty. The breeze still smells like vanilla and sea salt. The sun still glows amber through the canopy. But the innocence is cracked. The island isn't dying. But the rhythm is offbeat now. Your dodo finds a patch of shade and sits again. Tired. Confused. You sit beside it. For the first time, it leans into you, just a little. Not seeking safety, exactly. Just connection. And you get it. Because you can feel the imbalance too. Night again. But not like before. This one is louder. Sharper. There's a rustle in the underbrush that doesn't fit the island's usual hush. You sit up, alert. Your dodo is already standing, feathers puffed slightly, staring into the dark. The chick is tucked beneath one wing, silent. Something's watching. And here's the shift, you feel it too. The deep peace you'd grown used to? That easy, indifferent rhythm of eat, sleep, repeat? It's thinner now, threadbare. There's tension in the air, and it isn't just yours. This is the part of the story where the island begins to remember what fear feels like. Let's say it plain. The dodo wasn't built for vigilance. It didn't evolve alongside stealthy predators. There were no snakes on Mauritius. No large raptors. The dodo never had to look over its shoulder because there was never anything coming. Until there was. Mainstream historical fact. The introduction of invasive species, rats, cats, monkeys, pigs, was catastrophic. Rats, especially, were a death sentence. They bred fast, traveled light, and were obsessed with eggs. Once a rat found a nest, it was over. And dodo nests? Laughably easy targets. No elevation. No thorns. No defensive parents. Just a soft scrape in the dirt, one or two eggs, maybe a feather or two tossed on top like a half-hearted garnish. Historians still argue whether the dodo's extinction began immediately after the arrival of these animals, or if there was a short window where populations held steady. Either way, the downward curve was sharp. An ecosystem used to stability doesn't handle chaos well. Tonight, you see it happening. Rustle. A squeak. Your dodo steps forward, slow but determined. You catch a flash of movement, something small and fast. A rat? A mongoose? You're not sure, but your dodo knows. It stomps, snorts, puffs its feathers, and just like that, the threat slips back into the dark. A small victory, but one that costs energy, and the dodo doesn't have much to spare. Here's the thing, dodos weren't dumb. They were just untested. There's a difference. Intelligence in the wild often means pattern recognition, reaction time, adaptability. Dodos had no reason to develop those traits. They lived in paradise. They were specialists in peace. Until suddenly, peace was obsolete. You and your dodo walk the edge of a dried-up creek now. The moon hangs low, brushing silver across everything. The forest is awake in a new way, nervous, twitchy. Every sound has an echo. Every leaf crackle sounds guilty. And you see something strange, a group of dodos, maybe 5 or 6, huddled together under a fallen log. Not nesting, not feeding, just close. Pressed wing to wing like they're trying to remember what safety felt like. Fringe tidbit, there's a minor theory, mostly speculative, that dodos, toward the end, began forming small communal groups more often than before. Not true flocks, but loose clusters. Not for migration or feeding, just proximity. As if instinct was trying to compensate for a threat the brain didn't fully grasp. You approach slowly. One of the dodos hisses. It's not very intimidating. It sounds like someone trying to inflate a balloon with a hole in it, but it's something. A reaction. A spark. You back away. And as you do, you realize the dodo's final days weren't silent. They were full of confusion. Strange smells. Unfamiliar sounds. Shadows that didn't belong. And a creeping awareness that something, somewhere, was very wrong. You settle into a hollow near your dodo's nest. You're more tired now. Not just from the day, but from this. The change. The constant checking over your shoulder. Even your dodo sleeps with one eye half open. You don't speak. There's nothing to say. You just rest. Quiet. Listening to the cautious rustle of a world learning, far too late, what danger feels like. You dream of feathers. Of creatures that never learn to run. Morning creeps in gray and soft, like a tired cat stretching across the sky. You open your eyes to the steady hum of the forest, birds singing, leaves whispering, but something's off. The usual soundtrack of the island now has an undercurrent of tension, like a low, constant drumbeat you didn't notice before. Your dodo stands nearby, looking thinner. Its feathers aren't quite as fluffy. The confident waddle slowed to a hesitant shuffle. The chick, if you can still call it that, now bigger but still awkward, tries to keep up but keeps stumbling. You think about how fragile things are here, fragile in a way that's more than just physical. The landscape itself seems to have changed overnight. The ground is scuffed, some plants are trampled, and the air smells sharper, less sweet. There's a quiet evidence of disturbance you can't ignore. It's hard to say when the island started to unravel. Was it the arrival of rats, those sneaky egg thieves? The pigs rooting underfoot? Or the monkeys, brazen and curious? Probably all of it. Each one a thread pulling at the tapestry, slowly unraveling the fabric of dodo life. Mainstream historical fact. The arrival of invasive species on islands like Mauritius has been called the perfect storm for extinction. Predators that evolved alongside fast-moving prey arrived where none existed. A naive species like the dodo, with no instinct to flee or fight, became sitting targets. Yet, the final days of the dodo weren't some chaotic massacre. They were quiet, confused, and marked by small losses repeated endlessly. One nest raided here. One chick missing there. One adult vanishing into the underbrush never to be seen again. Fringe detail. Some researchers suggest that the dodo's breeding cycle may have slowed as environmental stress increased. Fewer eggs laid, longer intervals between seasons. It's a subtle response, almost like the species was trying to buy time to adapt. But evolution is a slow dance, and this beat was faster than the dodo could keep. Historians still argue how quickly the population collapsed. Some say it happened in a few decades. Others propose a faster timeline, within a single generation. The records are patchy, and early sailors' accounts are often unreliable. But the bones tell the stark truth. Fewer, gone. You watch your dodo for a moment. It's trying to find fruit beneath a thicket, but there's less. Much less. The lush bounty you once saw is fading, strangled by trampling and competition. The island's hospitality is running thin. Your dodo pecks at a fallen fruit, only to pull back, confused. It's bitter or spoiled. Not edible anymore. This is the essence of the slow disaster. It's not a single event. It's the creeping loss of security, abundance, and calm. It's the island's slow unraveling, played out on a bird's confused face. You reach down and gently brush dirt off an eggshell fragment, brittle and dusty. It's a relic of better days. You feel the weight of loss in something so small. The chick tries to stand but falters. The adult nudges it encouragingly, but even that touch feels tired. You can almost hear the island sigh. And yet, life clings on. Some dodos still wander, still forage, still try. There's no ceremony, no final act. Just a gradual fading of numbers, a shrinking footprint. You wonder what it must have felt like for a dodo to be the last of its kind. To live in a world that no longer made sense. To be the animal equivalent of a fading echo. You sit back, letting the weight of the moment settle around you. The forest is quieter now. You feel the slow pulse of time, relentless and indifferent. And the dodo, once so perfectly at home, is running out of time. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows that stretch like tired limbs across the forest floor. You're walking alongside your dodo, and there's a heaviness in the air, a feeling that the island itself is holding its breath. The once steady rhythm of daily life has splintered into erratic beats. Fruit that used to fall in generous heaps now dots the ground in sparse, tired clusters. The trees, once lush and vibrant, show signs of strain. Leaves are fewer, bark is scarred. The forest isn't dead, but it's wounded. Your dodo pauses at a patch of crushed leaves, nostrils flaring. It's sniffing for something, maybe food, maybe just reassurance. The chick scrambles clumsily nearby, pecking at a small stone, mistaking it for a seed. This is the aftermath, the slow unraveling we hinted at before. The invasive animals haven't just preyed on the dodos directly, they've reshaped the island. Rats digging through nests, monkeys snatching fruit before the dodos can get to it, pigs uprooting plants, each one a blow. Mainstream historical fact. Habitat degradation, introduced species, and direct hunting combined to seal the dodo's fate. It wasn't just one cause. It was a perfect storm of ecological disruption. Each factor compounded the others, leading to a rapid collapse. Here's a quirky detail. Some speculate that the dodo's favorite tree, the tambalacooke, also began to decline around the same time. Without dodos to eat its fruit and spread its seeds, the tree struggled to regenerate. A tragic feedback loop. No dodos, no new trees. No new trees, no dodos. Historians still argue how much this mutual dependency mattered. Was it a key part of the extinction process, or just a curious coincidence? Either way, it highlights how interconnected island ecosystems truly are. You watch your dodo approach a fallen tambalacooke fruit, now shriveled and mostly hollow. It pecks half-heartedly, then moves on. The chick tries to follow but trips over a root. This slow decay isn't just about food scarcity. It's about the breakdown of a system built over thousands of years. The island's balance, once reliable, is now unpredictable. Your dodo stops near a stream, panting slightly, a rare sight. It's adapted to conserve energy, not to cope with stress or exertion. You see the strain in its eyes, the subtle droop in its wings. You realize the island's heat feels sharper today, less forgiving. The water's level is lower. The forest's canopy thinner. The shadows shorter. It's not just the dodo that's faltering. It's the whole world it depended on. You crouch beside a patch of disturbed soil and find tiny rat tracks, fresh and bold. They crisscross the ground like graffiti, marking territory, announcing presence. These invaders don't rest, and neither can the dodos. You think about how quickly the island changed. How a place that once seemed eternal could be altered so fast by things so small. Your dodo flaps once, a weak sound like a tired sigh. You know this can't last. But for now, the dodo still moves. It still breathes. It still exists. And you are here with it, watching the slow fall of paradise. The days grow shorter, and so does your patience. The island's steady hum has become a staccato rhythm, punctuated by strange sounds that weren't there before. Rustlings, squeaks, the occasional scurry through dry leaves. You can't help but notice how your dodo's steps falter more often, how the chick's wobbles turn into frequent stumbles. You find yourself retracing old paths, places where the fruit once piled high, where nesting spots were sacred, and they're barren. The earth is compacted, trampled, sometimes scratched into chaotic patterns. It's clear, this island is changing beneath your feet, and not for the better. The dodo's slow metabolism was a perfect match for the island's long-standing calm. But now, it's like trying to run a marathon with a paper lung. The constant pressure to forage more, to stay alert, to survive, is breaking the mold. Mainstream historical fact: dodos had no natural predators for millennia, which explains their lack of flight and slow movement. When humans and invasive species arrived, this evolutionary gamble became a death sentence. The birds had no tools, no wings for escape, no claws for defense. Their largest weapon was confusion. You watch your dodo approach a small pool, sip cautiously, then back away. The water is murky, maybe even tainted. The ecosystem's shift has started to affect everything. Fringe detail: some paleontologists suggest that dodos may have occasionally dug for roots and tubers, supplementing their mostly fruit diet as resources dwindled. There's little direct evidence, but it hints at desperate adaptability, an attempt to stretch survival in a shrinking world. Historians still debate how much these behavioral shifts mattered. Were dodos smart enough to change their habits in the face of crisis? Or was their instinct too rigid, stuck in an ancient pattern that no longer fit? You follow your dodo to a clearing where several others are gathered, quiet, wary, and smaller than before. The once fluffy feathers are patchy, dull. The confident waddle has turned into a cautious shuffle. Even their calls sound weaker, less frequent. You sit back and think about extinction, not as a sudden event, but as a drawn-out process marked by moments of struggle, confusion, and quiet defeat. You feel the weight of inevitability, but also the stubborn pulse of life fighting to hold on. The sun dips low. The forest cools, shadows stretching like weary travelers. Your dodo curls into a shallow nest, chick close beside it. For a moment, the island feels fragile but still alive. And you wonder how many of these small moments passed unnoticed by the world. The dodo's story isn't just about loss. It's about endurance in the face of overwhelming change. About a slow, reluctant fading that speaks to the limits of nature and the consequences of human arrival. You lie down beside your dodo, feeling the cool earth beneath you. The air tastes faintly of salt and leaves. Somewhere, a bird calls, soft, uncertain. You close your eyes and listen. The island wakes in a muted haze, as if still recovering from a long, uneasy dream. You and your dodo move slowly through the undergrowth, the ground soft beneath your feet but the air heavy, thick with humidity and something less tangible, like unease settling into the bones of the forest. Your dodo's feathers are duller today, the usual sheen faded. It pecks at fallen fruit with less enthusiasm, barely bothering to swipe away the ants swarming nearby. The chick trails behind, slower, head bowed like it's carrying a secret weight. Here's the thing. Life on an island with no predators encourages a certain kind of peace, a rhythm tuned to abundance and ease. But when disruption comes, be it rats, pigs, or humans, it's like someone hit the pause button and then pressed play on a broken record. Mainstream historical fact: invasive species don't just steal food or prey on eggs. They often outcompete native animals for resources, spreading disease and reshaping entire ecosystems. On Mauritius, this cocktail of newcomers spelled disaster for the dodo. You pause beside a tangled thicket, fingers brushing against rough bark. Nearby, a scarred tree trunk lies fallen, hollowed out. It's a quiet monument to change, what once was strong, now toppled and decomposing. Fringe tidbit: some ecologists have speculated that dodos may have relied on fallen logs and dense underbrush not just for shelter but as strategic nesting sites to avoid ground-level predators. As pigs and rats tore through the forest floor, those hiding spots became death traps rather than sanctuaries. Historians still debate how much behavioral flexibility the dodo actually had. Was it capable of learning to avoid threats? Or was its evolutionary history so specialized that it remained largely oblivious? The answer is murky, caught between sparse evidence and hopeful imagination. You watch as your dodo struggles to reach a patch of fruit just out of the chick's grasp. The chick tries, flailing awkwardly, but can't quite manage it. The adult finally steps in, nudging the fruit closer, but there's an exhaustion in the gesture, a reluctance almost. You realize how much of survival is just trying one more time when everything inside says to stop. The forest around you feels like it's holding its breath. The dodos sense it too. They don't call as often. They don't gather in groups. They move quietly, shadows passing through shadows. And in this silence, you catch a glimpse of something else. An instinctual resignation, a quiet acceptance of a world that no longer makes sense. You sit down, back against a tree, and close your eyes for a moment. The distant crash of waves, the soft whistle of wind through leaves, the low hum of insects. The island's pulse, faint but steady. You open your eyes to find your dodo resting nearby, feathers ruffled but peaceful for now. The chick nestled close, both caught in a fragile moment of calm. It's a brief reprieve, but the storm is coming. The forest feels different today, lighter in some ways, yet heavier in others. The sun filters through the leaves, casting fractured patterns on the ground, but the brightness doesn't reach the depths where the dodos usually find their solace. You notice the occasional rustle, but it's no longer the lazy movements of fruit bats or the gentle steps of your dodo. These sounds have an edge, a nervous energy. Your dodo moves slowly as usual, but now you can sense hesitation. It stops more often, head cocked, watching shadows that you can't see. The chick, growing but still awkward, tries to keep up, but its steps are unsure, like it's learning to navigate a world that's becoming strange and unpredictable. This creeping tension isn't just in the animals. It's in the air, in the cracked bark, in the leaf litter disturbed by tiny paws that don't belong. The island's balance is unraveling faster than you'd imagined. Mainstream historical fact. Invasive species like rats and monkeys didn't just raid nests. They also spread new diseases to which the dodo had no immunity. It's a hidden killer, a silent enemy that worked alongside the more obvious threats to seal the dodo's fate. A quirky detail. There's speculation that dodos may have suffered from a kind of chronic stress toward the end, an elevated heart rate, erratic behavior, reduced fertility, all caused by the constant pressure of predators and scarcity. Stress hormones don't fossilize, but these ideas come from parallels in other island birds facing similar crises. Historians still argue about how much this physiological stress contributed to the dodo's extinction compared to direct predation and habitat loss. The truth is probably a complex tangle, with multiple factors interacting in ways we can only guess at. You watch your dodo stop near a fallen branch, peck at a few scattered seeds, then suddenly freeze. Its eyes narrow as it picks up a faint scent. It steps back cautiously, wings slightly raised, not quite threatening but alert. You realize that this bird, once the embodiment of island calm, is starting to learn fear. Not in the way predators or flighty birds do, but something more raw, an awareness that the world is shifting under its feet. The chick stumbles, and the adult turns to nudge it forward gently. There's tenderness there, but it's tinged with exhaustion. You sit back and let the moment wash over you. The beauty, the fragility, and the inexorable unraveling all at once. This is the slow goodbye. The quiet fading of a creature perfectly adapted to a paradise that no longer exists. And you, a witness, can only watch. You notice the forest growing quieter. Not just quieter, but emptier. The vibrant chaos of life that once buzzed beneath the canopy has thinned to a fragile whisper. Where fruit used to drop in heaps, there are now patches of bare earth. Leaves that once rustled with the footsteps of countless creatures now lie still, save for the occasional insect. Your dodo moves with a slower, more labored gait. The once fluffy feathers are now ragged, and the bright gleam in its eye has dulled. The chick, still clumsy but growing, attempts to forage but often looks confused or frustrated, missing the mark more than it hits. You're witnessing an ecosystem unraveling, not in sudden catastrophe, but in slow, grinding decline. It's the kind of extinction that isn't announced with fanfare. There's no grand finale, just an almost imperceptible fading. Mainstream historical fact. By the late 1600s, the dodo was all but gone. The exact date is debated, but the last widely accepted sighting is around 1662. That means from the time humans first set foot on Mauritius, fewer than a century passed before the dodo vanished forever. Quirky tidbit. Despite being flightless, dodos were surprisingly heavy. Estimates suggest adults weighed between 10 and 20 kilograms, roughly 22 to 44 pounds. Imagine a turkey on steroids, waddling through the forest with zero interest in escaping danger. Historians still argue about how much direct hunting by sailors contributed to the extinction versus indirect causes like introduced species and habitat destruction. What's clear is that human presence, intentional or not, was the tipping point. You sit beside a fallen tree, feeling the weight of loss settle around you like the island's thick humidity. Your dodo is quiet now, nestled in the shade with its chick, both resting in a moment that feels like a final breath. You look up at the sky, where a few clouds drift lazily, oblivious to the change below. This is The Edge, the last chapter in a story of a creature perfectly adapted to its environment, undone by forces it never understood. You close your eyes and listen to the island's fading heartbeat. The day stretches into a slow, quiet dusk. The golden light filters softly through the palm fronds, casting long, lazy shadows over the worn earth beneath your feet. You and your dodo sit together, side by side, the chick nestled safely between you both. The air feels heavy but calm, an exhausted hush settling over the island. The dodo's breathing is steady but shallow, its feathers less vibrant than before, yet there's a peacefulness in its posture that wasn't there in earlier days. The frantic energy of survival has given way to a quiet acceptance, a slow yielding to the inevitable. You feel it too, that weight in your chest, the bittersweet recognition of an ending. Mainstream historical fact. The dodo's extinction was one of the earliest and most emblematic examples of how human activity and introduced species can rapidly destroy isolated ecosystems. Its disappearance marked the beginning of a much larger conversation about conservation long before that word existed. A quirky detail: despite their reputation as clumsy, slow birds, dodos were likely curious and social creatures, interacting with one another in ways that early sailors failed to understand or record. Some reports even describe gentle behaviors, like cooperative nesting, though these remain speculative. Historians still debate the exact sequence of events leading to the dodo's extinction, piecing together fragmentary evidence from ship logs, fossils, and the occasional anecdote. The truth remains elusive, buried beneath layers of time and myth. You close your eyes and imagine the island, the dense forests, the warm breeze, the slow, steady rhythm that once defined life here. You see the dodo wandering through this landscape, peaceful and unbothered, living in a world without urgency. And now, as the light fades, you feel that same peace settle over you. The island exhales. The dodo rests, and you let yourself drift with them into the soft embrace of night. You're lying still now, the slow pulse of the island fading gently beneath your skin. The warm air wraps around you like a soft blanket, steady and unchanging. Your breath slows, the thoughts in your mind becoming quiet, less urgent. The dodo's world, simple, slow, unhurried, settles into your bones. There's no rush here, no pressure to move or think or do. Just the gentle rhythm of existence, a heartbeat in the dark. The sounds of the forest blend into a soothing hum, the whisper of leaves, the distant crash of waves, the faint call of a night bird. You feel the weight of everything that was and everything that's passed away, but also a quiet hope that in remembering, you keep the dodo alive, if only for a moment longer. So breathe in the calm. Let your thoughts drift away like leaves on a stream. The island's slow, steady pulse is now your own. Good night.